Views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station, its owners, staff, or management. The Dr. Robin Zasio Show is brought to you by the Anxiety Treatment Center of Sacramento. Welcome to the Dr. Robin Zasio Show, presented by the Anxiety Treatment Center of Sacramento. Dr. Zasio is a clinical psychologist with over 20 years' experience in treating OCD and other anxiety disorders. Dr. Zasio is one of the featured doctors on the A&E Emmy-nominated television show Hoarders and host of My Extreme Animal Phobia on Animal Planet. And now your host, Dr. Robin Zasio on AM 1380, The Answer.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Robin Zasio Show. And you've guessed it, I'm Dr. Robin Zasio. If you've never heard this show before, every Saturday morning I'm here between 10 and 11 Pacific Standard Time. And we rebroadcast again on Sunday mornings between 6 and 7 a.m. also Pacific Standard Time. I'm here to feature different mental health topics that can affect the general public. We cover a wide range of information that allows you to better understand some of the conditions that can affect people, as well as help to understand them better, in addition to offering resources. If you're not familiar with who I am, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I'm director of the Anxiety Treatment Center here in Sacramento, where we specialize in helping people overcome various anxiety disorders, from OCD, social anxiety, panic disorder, trauma, just plain generalized anxiety in general. So today, I am thrilled to have my guest, Paula Keriso. She is an expert in an unusual way, and we're going to talk about abuse. And the reason why she's an expert is because she experienced a horrific relationship that nearly brought her to her knees, and she's going to share with us today. Welcome, Paula.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and I know that we've gone back and forth trying to find some times that work for both of us. I know your schedule is busy, and I was thinking a lot about the show today and just how incredibly brave you are to have turned an experience in your life of tragedy to advocacy.
Thank you. I sometimes, I don't really see myself as brave. Sometimes at first I just thought, wow, this is kind of foolish, in hindsight sometimes. I'm just like, wow. But actually, I'm super grateful to myself for, kind of taking that leap of faith and blindly just kind of putting my story out there. It's been about 4 years since I started this advocacy work.
So let's talk about that, Paula. Why don't we just jump right in and share a little bit about what life looked like for you prior to entering into a relationship that became very destructive?
Sure. So I guess I think it's important that I start a couple decades back. So my first actual experience with an abusive relationship happened when I was 18. I was a senior in high school. He was young as well. He was 18. And within just a few months of dating him, it was clear that he was not someone that I should be with or anyone should be with. He was very violent. And it took me a while to actually get out of that relationship. It took me about 8 months to get out of that relationship. I know that doesn't seem like a very long time, considering some people are in, abusive relationships for many, many years. But luckily, I was able to escape that relationship, and it was one of those things that changed me forever. As a young woman, I was just changed forever. So decades passed, and the dating and just the uncertainty of, am I going to choose someone like that again? So I really closed myself off to what I consider real love, because I feel like I had been open to it and I'd failed myself. So really I was, I spent most of my 20s, just bouncing from relationship to relationship and not wanting to get close. I also, and you can, as a therapist, you can understand this, coming out of that abusive relationship at 18, there was a lot of shame, associated with that relationship. I didn't tell anybody. I even though, I can't come from a very loving family, I felt so ashamed because I was the straight A student. I was the girl that, that made good choices and that was strong, and the big sister who, was always supposed to be just the one that was doing everything right. And here I found myself, wow, I'm not any of those things, and I had to hide it. So in hiding that shame led to some, self-destructive behaviors. So I was, I guess one of the things I formed an eating disorder. It's very common in young women, but for me, it stems directly from the shame of this relationship that I had found myself in because I felt like I chose this person. What does that say about me? I chose someone who could actually physically hit me, hurt me, kick me, and the only person that I actually told was a police officer who basically told me that there was nothing he could do about it. So not only was there shame that I had to live with, but also the sense of helplessness, like, who can help me? I'm on my own. The reality that I was on my own. So for about 15 years, I went in and out of relationships. I finally got married, though. I mean, I found someone who was very kind and loving, and I had a child with him. And then around the age of 35, I went to see a therapist because I was just, my son was young. I was just feeling kind of out of sorts. I went to see a therapist, and within 30 minutes of talking to him, he diagnosed me with depression. And, on top of everything else, all the self-shame that I was feeling, here is this person who barely knew me that was telling me that I was clinically depressed, which, impacted me even more, made me feel even more shameful. I'm just like, oh, my goodness. And so that really affected all of my relationships, my work, my relationship with my husband and my son. And I just didn't feel very worthy. And my husband and I separated, and then that's when I fell into a relationship that was not physically violent, but it was emotionally violent. And it was once I escaped that relationship, it lasted for about 3 years, that I realized that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. I basically found myself, I had experienced some, it was disorienting, this disorienting dilemma, and I had to change.
So, Paula, it's interesting because one of the things you're talking about is that delineation between emotional abuse and physical abuse. And when we come back from the commercial, I want to talk a little bit about that distinction.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about abuse, they're thinking, I haven't been hit,
Right.
I haven't been thrown to the ground. So when we come back, we're going to talk with Paula, who is going to share with us her experience of being in a relationship that was emotionally abusing.
From the hit A&E television show Hoarders, clinical psychologist Dr. Robin Zasio brings you her book, The Hoarder in You, How to Live a Happier, Healthier, Uncluttered Life. In the book, Dr. Zasio shows you how to take control of your stuff and shares behind-the-scenes stories from The Hoarders show. She also shares psychological and practical advice for decluttering and organizing, including how to tame the emotional pull of acquiring things and creating an organizational system that reduces stress and anxiety. The Hoarder in You from Dr. Robin Zasio. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
The countdown is on to the most important election of our lifetimes, and maybe the strangest presidential campaign we've ever seen. AM 1380, The Answer presents Doomsday or Redemption Day. Join Congressman Tom McClintock, national radio host Larry Elder, and The Answer's own Phil Cowan for opinions and insights before you vote. October 13th at William Jessup University in Rockland. VIP tickets and all the info on free general admission at ktkz.com.
Anxiety disorders affect more than 17 million Americans, and these are the diagnosed cases. It is estimated millions more go undiagnosed. These conditions, which are considered serious medical illnesses, require specialized treatment. Extensive research confirms that there are effective treatments that can help decrease and even eliminate anxiety that previously may have been disabling. The Anxiety Treatment Center of Sacramento is Northern California's premier treatment facility, specializing in OCD, anxiety disorders, and other related conditions. If you or someone you love is showing signs of an anxiety-related illness, the time to act is now. The first step is to go to their website at anxietytreatmentexperts.com. That's anxietytreatmentexperts.com. The website has frequently asked questions and detailed information to help you. The next step is to schedule a consultation. Reclaim your life with help from the staff at the Anxiety Treatment Center of Sacramento. Find them online at anxietytreatmentexperts.com. That's anxietytreatmentexperts.com.
News, opinion, insight. AM 1380. The Answer.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is the Dr. Robin Zasio Show, and we're talking about abuse, whether it be dating abuse, elderly abuse. I mean, abuse can span any age. And you might be listening saying, oh, I'm going to turn the channel. This doesn't apply to me. Well, I think it's important to know that abuse can occur on all different levels. And I think that there's a tendency to look at physical abuse rather than realizing that people can be emotionally abused as well. And my guest, Paula Keriso, is here sharing her story of not just one relationship that she was in, but the unfortunate tragedy of falling into a second one after years and years of depression and shame. Now, let's do some statistics here, Paula. You started out with sharing that your first abusive relationship, which was physical, began when you were in your teens. And here we go. 20.9% of female high school students and 13.4% of male high school students report being physically or sexually abused by a dating partner. Nearly 1.5 high school students in the United States are physically abused by dating partners every year. And only 33% of teenage dating abuse victims ever told anyone about it. And Paula, you're part of that 33%.
I sure am.
Yeah, and that is a huge statistic.
Yes, it is. And I didn't realize that statistic until just now. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Well, and you know, and I think that that's so important because, you know, if we've got parents who are listening, they're probably thinking, oh, this doesn't apply to my child. Well, gosh, 33%, those are not good statistics. And Paula, you talked about some of those classic reactions of sort of looking at your life. You're a good student. You've been raised in a good environment. So you would be the appearance of the antithesis of somebody who would become involved in an abusive environment. But my friends, I think it's important to note that it's very common that people who are abusive are very seductive, that they don't just come out and say, hey, just FYI, if you get in a relationship with me, I'm going to emotionally abuse you or I'm going to physically abuse you. That comes out after they have sort of wooed you in and gotten you sort of under their skin to where then that personality starts to unfold. Wouldn't you say that's correct, Paula?
Absolutely. So when I was a teenager, one of the things that kind of lured me in initially is he was very attractive. However, you know, and I was young, you know, and I'd only been in one prior serious relationship as a young person. And then what actually happened was he started shaming me pretty quickly, like comparing my family life to his family life and revealing to me that he had been abused as a child. So what happened in my mind, like I can see this in hindsight, that I was confusing my pity for him for love. Like, yes, I was just like, oh, this poor guy, you know. I felt like, you know, why did I kind of get all this love and he was just given abuse? So I just kept coming up with excuses in the beginning, and I was so confused because, like I said, I was confusing the pity that I was feeling for him for love. But then as an adult, when I fell into the second relationship, it was very, very seductive. You know, it was all the grooming and just telling me how wonderful and beautiful I was and what a perfect mother I was, and, you know, just perfect. So here I was, this person who had been, you know, in recent years diagnosed as being depressed, you know, thinking, okay, maybe there's nothing wrong with me if this guy who barely knows me is, you know, saying all these wonderful things about me. So it was really a seduction. And it was pretty soon after starting the relationship that, you know, those red flags started flying, you know.
And Paula,
yeah.
I'm going to jump in. Two things. Number one is it felt like this was a round peg in a round hole. I mean, here, your self-esteem is in the tank, right?
Yeah.
You know, what's wrong with me? Why did I do this? Having a difficult time opening up. And this person brings you all the validation, all the acknowledgement, everything that women love to hear, the acknowledgement and the appreciation.
Yeah.
And
I would just like to say that it's human beings love to hear it, you know, because I work with men who have been emotionally abused as well, and you know, I just want to make that distinction because this happens to men as well.
I think that's a great point because I think that there is a tendency to think that it's always male perpetrators, and of course that is not the case at all. So thank you for that, Paula. So here this guy woos you in, and you're in probably deep at this point, and what begins to surface?
Well, I started feeling like those old feelings when I was in that relationship when I was 18, like that shame was coming up, you know. He was making me feel so subtle. Like he would pick apart some of my beliefs, and I started second-guessing my own values. And, you know, to me, now, in hindsight, again, that is a red flag. That should be a red flag for anyone. Like if you're suddenly you're in love, you're going along, and then all of a sudden one day this person that you love, that you think loves you so much, is now inducing this feeling of shame inside of you. Wow, that's a huge red flag. But what our human tendency, like good people who want to love, continue to feel love, we push that aside. We're just like, no, he can't possibly really, really want me to feel ashamed of how, you know, I was raised or my past relationships or whatever it was that he was picking apart at the time he was picking it apart. But like I said, it was so reminiscent of those sensations that I was feeling as a teenager, but without the violent, like, hitting and slapping. So I wasn't putting two and two together as far as, like, it being abusive, even though it was emotionally and spiritually abusive.
And Paula, one of the classic signs of emotional abuse is that tendency to humiliate somebody or embarrass them, to disregard their needs, or as you said, to kind of pick apart, to really whittle you down, and attack very much your values.
Yes.
And,
absolutely.
And, you know, you use the word red flag, and I think that there is such a tendency for all of us in general that when we see something going bad, that we just kind of hope it will work itself out rather than to say, okay, we've got a problem here, something's going wrong, something's different. I'm not feeling good about what's happening. But I think sometimes just that hope that, you know what, I won't say anything, you know, you're walking on eggshells because you don't want to upset them.
Yeah. So the reality is, I was thinking, well, if I can just explain to him why, you know, I feel the way I do, then maybe he'll understand, because I'm that type of person. If at first somebody tells me something about what they've done and I feel that tinge of judgment towards them, I let them explain themselves, and I'm just like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. And then I apologize for even considering that it was a bad thing. But people who tend to be abusive by nature or can't help themselves aren't interested in understanding. They're not interested in learning and more about the person that they're targeting, the person that they're abusing. It's as if no, their whole purpose is just to destroy another human being. And honestly, I don't know why there are people out there like that, but they exist. So once you find yourself in a situation where when you feel ashamed and you're not even being permitted to explain yourself, and there's no kind of evolution of the relationship, no understanding is happening, again, that is a huge red flag, because it's like this person has total control over how I felt about myself. And that should not be in the hands of somebody else but me. But I was allowing this other person to dictate how I was feeling about myself.
Paula, I think that's such an important point. Speaking to, I mean, that acknowledgement, I gave up my power. I gave up my power to this person that really influenced how I felt about myself, rather than being able to stick to our own convictions and say, this is not right, and I don't like the way I'm being treated, and I deserve more. And I think there's two aspects. You fell back into this relationship or an abusive relationship because there had not been any work done previously to understand what landed you the first time and kept you in that. And I definitely want to talk about that for our listeners who might be in abusive relationships, to not only see the signs of how they might be stuck, but how they can get out. But the second thing is that once you're in, it is so hard to get out, and the emotional turmoil that a person is in, you're almost on that teeter-totter, and the control that is exerted upon a person is huge, because that's what they're trying to do for whatever reasons. You had your reasons for getting into that relationship, not conscious, of course, but people who are abusive also have reasons why. Perhaps they were abused as a child and that's what they were taught, or perhaps they are sensing a sense of powerless in their own life, and so they're exerting that power over someone else. I mean, as you know, Paula, it can be a number of different things. People can be under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and that causes them to switch to flip a switch and become abusive. So we're going to take a commercial and be back very quickly and talk a little bit about why people stay in abusive relationships, how to recognize them, and what you can do. We'll be back.
Anxiety disorders affect more than 17 million Americans, and these are the diagnosed cases. It is estimated millions more go undiagnosed. These conditions, which are considered serious medical illnesses, require specialized treatment. Extensive research confirms that there are effective treatments that can help decrease and even eliminate anxiety that previously may have been disabling. The Anxiety Treatment Center of Sacramento is Northern California's premier treatment facility, specializing in OCD, anxiety disorders, and other related conditions. If you or someone you love is showing signs of an anxiety-related illness, the time to act is now. The first step is to go to their website at anxietytreatmentexperts.com. That's anxietytreatmentexperts.com. The website has frequently asked questions and detailed information to help you. The next step is to schedule a consultation. Reclaim your life with help from the staff at the Anxiety Treatment Center of Sacramento. Find them online at anxietytreatmentexperts.com. That's anxietytreatmentexperts.com.
Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. Will it be Doomsday or Redemption Day or Groundhog's Day?
I want to offer Americans a new and much better future.
Donald Trump's ideas aren't just different. They are just a series of bizarre rants, personal feuds, and outright lies.
Lie.
Lie, lie, lie.
Dirty, rotten liar.
This is Larry Elder. Join me, Congressman Tom McClintock, and Phil Cowan for lively discussion as we get ready for the craziest election yet.
It's time for rule by the people, not rule for the special interests.
Donald Trump cannot do the job for American workers and businesses.
I'd love to meet you at our event coming up Thursday, October 13th at William Jessup University. Tickets are free at ktkz.com.
The countdown is on. VIP tickets and all the info on free general admission at ktkz.com.
Sponsored by Elk Grove Dodge.
From the hit A&E television show Hoarders, clinical psychologist Dr. Robin Zasio brings you her book, The Hoarder in You, How to Live a Happier, Healthier, Uncluttered Life. In the book, Dr. Zasio shows you how to take control of your stuff and shares behind-the-scenes stories from The Hoarders show. She also shares psychological and practical advice for decluttering and organizing, including how to tame the emotional pull of acquiring things and creating an organizational system that reduces stress and anxiety. The Hoarder in You from Dr. Robin Zasio. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
AM 1380, The Answer.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is the Dr. Robin Zasio Show. And I have Paula Keriso, who is here sharing her very personal story about how she found herself in 2 different abusive relationships. She's out now. Her life is on track, but she has turned tragedy into advocacy to reach out to people and to share her story in hope that perhaps just one person might recognize whether or not they need to make a change in their lives. I'm looking at some more statistics here, Paula, from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 7 men have been severely physically abused by an intimate partner. 1 in 7 women and 1 in 18 men have been stalked. On a typical day, domestic violence hotlines nationwide receive approximately 20,800 calls. I mean, Paula, that's just unbelievable.
Yes.
I mean,
the National Domestic Violence Hotline celebrated their 20th anniversary this year and their 1 millionth call.
So, yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about what psychological abuse can look like. It's when a partner or somebody you know can humiliate or embarrass you. Constant put-downs.
Yes. Well, what was the highlight of the abuse for me was he had to know and be informed of every move I made. So I had a smartphone at the time, and like I said, I was separated from my husband, and this person that I was with, he insisted that I put my phone on his plan. He was just like, I can save, we can save some money, and I was just like kind of naive. Well, I was naive. And I said, okay, sure, no problem.
Gosh, sounds reasonable, right?
Yeah, sounds reasonable. But what I didn't realize is that he did that in order to monitor me because he had access to the online account for the phones, and he was actually able to see every call I made and every person that I texted.
And
I had no idea.
Yeah, and of course, Paula, you're not doing anything. It's just that person who has that abusive nature is they're in their own world, thinking that
paranoia,
yep. Absolutely,
jealousy, fear. Yeah. Abuse is driven by fear, not love. That's the other thing. So, and when I was working, he would repeatedly text me, email me, call me. I'd be in the middle of meetings, and I would text him just like, I'm in a meeting. And he was just like, oh, okay, baby. And then within 2 seconds, he'd be texting me again. I'm just like, I'm still in a meeting. And then the text would become, get really violent by nature. And I'm just like, whoa. And I'd have to leave the meeting, go into the bathroom to try to calm him down. So it was like I was always trying to pacify him. and, calm him down, not realizing that he was actually hurting me.
Sure.
And I was the one that needed help. I needed to help myself. And I was actually offering, I was soothing him rather than getting out of the relationship to self-soothe, myself, So this constant, it was interrupting my every day. And the thing is that you said, he was monitoring my calls. Of course I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I was in communication with my son's father, my husband, who I was estranged with at the time. And that was a problem for this person. I'm just like, I'm sorry, but he's the father of my son. We're co-parenting. I have to communicate with him. And then I would find myself, going into the bathroom to make calls to my son's father, or making certain that I talk to my son's father before, spending time with this person. I mean, it was just insanity, and I didn't realize that it wasn't normal. I just thought I was protecting him so that he wouldn't have to feel jealous. I didn't realize, he shouldn't feel jealous. I should be able to talk to my son's father. It should be no big deal. So I was often accused of being a liar and hiding things. Well, you know what? I was.
You were kind of backed into a corner.
Yes.
And if you're just tuning in, we're talking with Paula Keriso, and she's sharing how she fell at the hands of an individual who was very psychologically and emotionally abusive to her. And you may be saying, this doesn't apply to me. Well, let's talk a little bit more about what psychological abuse can look like. There can be hypercriticism of the partner, refusing to communicate, ignoring or excluding you. They can engage in extramarital affairs or provocative behavior with the opposite sex. They can use sarcasm or unpleasant tones of voice. There can be unreasonable jealousy, which, Paula, you were just talking about. There can be extreme moodiness or mean jokes or constant tendency to make fun of the other person. Saying things like, I love you, but, or I love you, or if you love me, then you will do X, Y, Z. And of course, there's a sense of domination and control.
Oh, yeah.
There can be that withdrawal of affection, guilt trips, making everything your fault, isolating you from your friends and family, using money to control, the constant calling or texting when you're not with him and her, and even threatening to kill themselves if you leave them. And of course, it would be your fault if they did that.
Yeah,
so
and that's definitely one of the tactics that this person used. He would just start crying these crocodile tears whenever I'd say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And he would, really crocodile tears. I feel like I'm very in tune with people, and I've always been very sympathetic and empathetic. But when this person would start crying to me, it just struck me as like, these aren't real tears. This is weird. It was like something that I had never even experienced before. But at the same time, his words kind of countered how I was feeling about what I was witnessing. And so I was really confused. I'm just like, is he hurting, or is he just manipulating me? I did not know what was happening. And to be honest with you, I didn't recognize how he was psychologically harming me until I witnessed him doing it to my son, who was only 5 at the time.
And at that point, you're thinking, I got to put my foot down. And of course, Paula, you wrote your first book in August of 2012, My Life with a Sociopath. And your second book came out, Unashamed Voices, in December of 2014. Can you share a little bit about the things that helped you to reclaim your life? I know that yoga and mindfulness have been extremely influential.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So within about 8 months of escaping that relationship back in 2011, I was devastated by depression. And I also had started feeling a lot of physical pain. I wasn't able to determine what the source was. I was suffering, I was in a car accident back in 2002, and I suffered a knee injury. And in 2011, it just seemed to be like the pain was just escalating. And I wasn't even able to walk up and down steps without holding on to a railing. I mean, it was so painful. So my husband, who I did get back together with, he recommended that I go see an orthopedic surgeon and have surgery. And I really was trying to avoid that. So I went online and I just basically typed in to Google how to heal a knee injury without surgery. And yoga kept popping up. And I said, no way, I can't do yoga. Like, I was, a cross-country runner, I love to run. I love to be really active whenever I am active. I was just like, yoga, I could never do yoga. I just felt like I just didn't have the patience for it. But it kept popping up. So I was just like, okay, if there's a yoga studio within a mile radius of where I live, I will go. And sure enough, there was one right around the block. So I really felt like I had no choice but to give it a try. And so within a couple practices, the pain in my knee was like virtually gone. I mean, I was no longer popping. I mean, not kidding you. Within like 2 or 3 classes, I wasn't popping the Advil. I was walking up and down the steps like I'd never imagined I'd be able to walk up and down steps before. But then something else started happening. So a few months after I started practicing yoga, I turned 40, and I went to my 40-year checkup, and my doctor was just like, what are you doing? I was just like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you've dropped like 5 pounds, and your blood pressure is super amazing. And I was just like, oh, well, I started practicing yoga. And, then like within a couple weeks after that, I went to see my therapist. I was still seeing the same psychiatrist who had diagnosed me with depression. And I sat there in his office, and I was feeling like, I don't think I would need to be here anymore, And so I wasn't really putting things together. Like, I wasn't really recognizing that it was yoga, because I was still kind of like, one of the other things that I was suffering from was alcohol abuse. So I was because I was still trying to cope, and with the pain of what I didn't realize was post-traumatic stress. Because of this relationship that I had been in, both relationships, just like layer upon layer of the abuse that I wasn't allowing myself to purge. But what I discover now, is that the yoga really was like a catalyst for purging the pain, purging the stuff that I was suppressing and denying and not willing to face, all that ugliness. And so it was like, slowly over time, I was basically being exercised from the inside out of all this crap that I'd been living with for decades. So after about 6 months of practicing yoga was when I published my first book in 2012. And about 6 months after that, I decided, you know what, I'd love to become a certified yoga teacher, because this is helping me. I was putting 2 and 2 together finally, and reading more about the benefits of yoga and mindfulness. And, I had gone off. I stopped going to my therapist. I quit my antidepressants cold turkey, which I do not recommend to anybody. I will say that right now. Always, refer to your doctor. I was a little bold and foolish, but it's been since 2012, so it's been 4 years. I've actually been able to manage. Although I don't even like to say manage, because I don't even feel like I get depressed anymore. Like a normal person, I get sad every once in a while, but it's not like the way it was. I feel like I'm embodying who I really am now, and I'm not trying to mask or hide things anymore from myself or anyone else. So that's the biggest bonus, the biggest, I guess, breakthrough that mindfulness, yoga, meditation, and also healthy eating has brought to my life.
And I think one of the things you're speaking to, Paula, it's not just going to be one thing. Like, I think there's an assumption that when we're in psychological pain, we need to go to therapy. And for you, it was really a combination of balance in your life and the interesting circling back to values again. You got back in touch with your values and what is important to you. When we come back from our final break, we're going to talk briefly about why people stay in abusive relationships, and if you or somebody you know is in one, we're going to tell you where you can go to get some help.
Anxiety disorders affect more than 17 million Americans, and these are the diagnosed cases. It is estimated millions more go undiagnosed. These conditions, which are considered serious medical illnesses, require specialized treatment. Extensive research confirms that there are effective treatments that can help decrease and even eliminate anxiety that previously may have been disabling. The Anxiety Treatment Center of Sacramento is Northern California's premier treatment facility, specializing in OCD, anxiety disorders, and other related conditions. If you or someone you love is showing signs of an anxiety-related illness, the time to act is now. The first step is to go to their website at anxietytreatmentexperts.com. That's anxietytreatmentexperts.com. The website has frequently asked questions and detailed information to help you. The next step is to schedule a consultation. Reclaim your life with help from the staff at the Anxiety Treatment Center of Sacramento. Find them online at anxietytreatmentexperts.com. That's anxietytreatmentexperts.com.
Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. Will it be Doomsday or Redemption Day or Groundhog's Day?
Donald Trump is temperamentally unfit to be president.
Dirty, rotten liar.
This is Larry Elder. Join me, Congressman Tom McClintock, and Phil Cowan for a lively discussion as we get ready for the craziest election yet. It's Thursday, October 13th at William Jessup University. Tickets are free at ktkz.com. ktkz.com.
From the hit A&E television show Hoarders, clinical psychologist Dr. Robin Zasio brings you her book, The Hoarder in You, How to Live a Happier, Healthier, Uncluttered Life. In the book, Dr. Zasio shows you how to take control of your stuff and shares behind-the-scenes stories from The Hoarders show. She also shares psychological and practical advice for decluttering and organizing, including how to tame the emotional pull of acquiring things and creating an organizational system that reduces stress and anxiety. The Hoarder in You from Dr. Robin Zasio. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
AM 1380, The Answer.
Welcome back. This is the Dr. Robin Zasio Show. I'm Dr. Robin Zasio, and today we're talking about understanding how one gets into an abusive relationship and what keeps them there, and also how you can get out. And I'm here with my guest, Paula Keriso, who has very openly shared her story of being trapped or feeling trapped in an abusive relationship. And so in our final segment, I want to just outline some of the reasons why people stay in abusive relationships, because I think that there's a tendency for people to say, why don't you just leave? Like, no one's got you chained to, a pole. You're not in a box underneath someone's bed with a padlock. Why don't you just leave? So a few things to keep in mind. The victim fears that the abuser's violent behavior will escalate if she tries to leave. Another reason is the abuser has threatened the victim in some way, or even their family. The victim loves the abuser and believes that he or she can change that person. Sometimes they believe that abuse is just simply a normal part of a relationship. They can become financially dependent on the abuser. The abuser can threaten to take children away, or the victim can basically feel that they would be doing the wrong thing if they broke up the family. Certainly there can be religious or other cultural beliefs that preclude someone from leaving the relationship. And of course, as my guest Paula has outlined, low self-esteem kept her there, and in some ways feeling responsible for the abuse in that, gosh, maybe there's something that I'm doing, or maybe I'm missing something. I need to take care of them. Certainly embarrassment of letting other people know that they're in an abusive relationship can be why someone might stay. They may feel like they have nowhere to go.
Yes.
Or they may fear retribution. And one of the things I want to be sure that we cover is if you are in danger yourself or you need a place to talk, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233. That's 1-800-799-SAFE. And I think that the key here is, Paula, I know your story is to inspire hope that no matter how far down you feel that you are, there is a way out. And, you know, I am always talking with my clients about how feelings are not always facts. You know, when you're terrified to touch a door handle because you have OCD and you think that you're going to get AIDS, just because you feel like that's real, it doesn't mean that it is. And we are now in a community, in a society where there are so many resources. And Paula, can you give us your website and contact information in case somebody wants to reach out?
Absolutely. My website is www.lovelifeom.com, and people can contact me directly via email at paula@lovelifeom.com. And, you know, that laundry list of, you know, why people stay, it that you just ran off, it all stems from fear. So, you know, one of the things that I focus on is, you know, helping people shift away from fear and into love, and really loving themselves, learning to love themselves. You know, I know it sounds so cliche, but really that's really at the heart of why we stay and why even after we've left, we remain stuck and we remain shameful, because, you know, there's so many women that I meet, specifically women who are highly successful, highly educated people. It doesn't matter who you are. There's, you know, most people think, you know, it's just people who are living in trailer parks are the ones that are dealing with this. No. I mean, people who are successful, educated, have jobs, have healthy, you know, relationships with other people, find themselves in these abusive relationships. And there's so much shame related to this.
Sure.
You know, because like me, like, you know, you want people to see you as, you know, competent and successful, and then you have this secret, and that builds the shame, you know. But if you're able to just face it and look deep within and really learn how to form a loving relationship with yourself, it can catapult your entire life and all of your relationships and every aspect of your life.
Of course. Paula, we're going to have to wind down here in just a couple minutes. I know this is an all-day topic. This is a weekend topic. This could be a retreat. But thank you for joining me. Your insight is so incredibly powerful. And if we've touched just one heart, we have done our job. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And if you've been listening, this is the Dr. Robin Zasio Show. Today we're talking about developing insight into abusive relationships, whether or not you're in one or you know someone. Please do reach out. Don't let shame and embarrassment, depression, or anything, financial, housing, don't let anything stop you from getting out. You know, if you know me, if you've been a client, if you know me personally, if you've heard me talk, my belief is we're on this planet for a reason, and it's meant to maximize all the God-given gifts that we have. This will replay again tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, from 6 to 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm Dr. Robin Zasio. I'm the owner and director of the Anxiety Treatment Center. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions about today's topic or any others. I'm at anxietytreatmentexperts.com, and I can be reached at 916-366-0647. Have a wonderful day, my friends, and God bless.